Before I Met You is about two different young women in their early 20s. One is Betty, and in 1995 she leaves the island of Guernsey and comes to live in Soho on a mission to find the mysterious beneficiary in her grandmother's will, a lady called Clara Pickle. Betty's grandmother is Arlette, and she, unbeknownst to anyone in her family, actually spent some time in London in 1919 to 1921. So it's a dual time frame, and we get to go back to the 20s to see what Arlette was doing in London. And at the same time, we're watching Betty in 1995 coming of age, and also trying to find the mysterious Clara Pickle and work out where she fits into Arlette's story. The inspiration behind the story really came from wanting to get away from what I'd been doing with my previous two novels, After the Party and The Making of Us, which both had quite heavy themes, and I just had this overwhelming need to write something a bit lighter and a bit fluffier, and I just had this idea of a young girl in the 90s in Soho falling in love with a Britpop star. So that was the original starting point, it was going to be a lovely 90s grungy love story, possibly a love triangle. So I started writing it, and I kind of realised 100 pages in that it wasn't quite meaty enough for me, that maybe a love story wasn't what I really wanted to write after all. And then I had a brainstorming session with my editor, as us authors do, and we came up with this idea of going back to a character from earlier on in the book, Betty's grandmother, and bringing her story into Betty's story. So it started off as one thing and ended up as something completely different. So having decided that I wanted to explore Arlette's history as well, I was kind of forced then into writing about a particular era, because if Betty was 22 in 1995, then clearly Arlette would have been, given that she's a very old lady at the beginning of the book, would have been 22 in 1920. So I was kind of forced into writing about this period, and the minute I knew I was going to be writing about this period, I was thrilled. It's not a period I know a lot about, but it's a period that everybody recognises and everybody has an emotional connection with, because it was so bright, it was so glittering, it was so colourful, everything was new, everything was fresh, and everything was, slightly bohemian, particularly in London at that time, after the First World War. So it was a fantastic opportunity to write about a period that I'd never would have set out to write about otherwise. When I started writing Before I Met You, I really wanted to give my readers a taste of my previous books, which is why I set out to write a love story with a good old-fashioned love triangle. So even though it's become more of a complicated book than that, with a dual time frame and a historical element, I really, really want my readers to take away that golden feeling of that, feel good, a nice big sigh at the end, a big warm hug. I want them to feel very much like they've been on a gorgeous journey.